All right, so we're gonna hop into a video right now about
dating advice for both genders and how the crossover looks.
yeah. So so here's the thing. Like I've come across plenty of male dating coaches for females, male dating coaches for men, and female dating coaches for men. But I've never come across, just in my own little universe, I've never come across a female dating coach for women.
Lies.
Have I?
Yes.
Who?
The girl that you talked to.
That doesn't count. That doesn't fucking count.
Okay.
Yeah, that doesn't count. Okay, we're not going there. Okay, so an actual female dating coach that has content now has probably like helped people and stuff like that. So, what I'm getting at is, so I have a bunch of friends that we'll have conversations. We'll try to like troubleshoot what went wrong on the date and blah blah blah. And I've only been exposed to dating advice for men, and I try to be a smart guy. I try to intuit like what the connections are, what's the same for men, how that applies for women. But I really don't. At the end of the day, I don't know. So I'll have girls come to me and tell me about X, Y, and Z, and I try to address it the best I can. But at the end of the day, I don't really fucking know the same way that I could tell a guy. I could coach a guy from Z all the way to A, but I couldn't do that with a girl. And get about halfway and be like, whatever, go figure it out, right? So what I wanted to do, because Sabrina and I were talking last week in the car, and we were talking about what the conventional dating advice for women is. So you followed
4 different guys
over the last few years or whatever.
So several years, yeah.
Yeah, and so you've picked up some things just in your own single life, or even following them like while you're in a relationship or whatever. Mm-hmm. You did the same thing. It's good to have a little firepower in your pocket. But so I just want to tell anybody watching this video just real quick. So Sabrina isn't a dating coach, right? She's just a student of life. And a couple things I want to throw out there just so you can get context is that so you've been a licensed massage therapist for several years. You've been practicing that for 8 years. Okay. In the last year, she went out on her own, so she's got her own business. She has a pretty steady clientele, some of which in the film industry, etc. And she trains judo, she competes, she trains jiu-jitsu, and is an avid reader. So you're a student of life. You're not just somebody saying, one time I heard this. She's serious about her craft, and so I wouldn't bring somebody on the camera who I didn't respect what they have to say. So I think it would be interesting just for people on my Facebook page and even just my friends, like, this is the conventional dating advice from somebody that's actually been listening to this shit for a few years and has a picture of how all this shit works from the female perspective. So that was a really long lead in. What do you have to say? Tell us. What is the answer?
I mean, my testament is right here. I got this one, so got you locked down in 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, you know what you're doing. So, okay. So the first, okay. Let me try to ask you some questions then. So, the advice for guys is, get out there and, get over rejection, get out there and approach a lot of women, and don't register the negative experiences in your head. Just, register the positive ones, keep yourself going like that, and get out there and approach. Build up a sense of abundance and entitlement, so that way, see a lot of women at one time, so that way, once you're in that space, you find the one that you like. You're not nervous, you can be yourself, and then you can essentially choose from a place of seeming like you're not choosing. And so for women, it's not really the same, right? You're not necessarily going after, 100 guys, asking 100 different guys for their number, and then worrying about when do I call them, and blah, 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 right?
No.
So what is the game in a nutshell for a female, in your opinion? And based on what you've heard?
Be interesting, be approachable, about it.
Be interesting and be approachable. Okay.
Don't be overly, I mean, have your shit going on. Don't be overly available, but if a guy is interested in you, he's like, guys like to chase. You guys are hunters. So don't be a boring hunt.
Right, yeah. So you said you said something interesting when we were talking about this last time, and it was like we were talking about the like the analogy of the guy in the club who's maybe a good dancer, and so you scout out a guy, you see a guy in his environment, and you say, I like that one, but you know that you can't just direct approach or whatever. What do you do like, in that setting where you see the guy and you want him to approach? Like, what is the advice in that scenario?
I mean, so, like, one of the specific things they say is, like, if you're in a group, be on, like, the outskirts of the group, so you're not, like, dead center, they have to, like, weave through a whole bunch of people to get to you or whatever, like, you know, try to, you know, look, smile, be friendly, you know, catch his eye if you can, put yourself in front of him if you have to, you know, squeeze past them, excuse me, you know, whatever, just bump, you know, side strike a conversation. What was it? So for the guy in the club, actually, what it wound up being was I kind of stayed, like, on the outside edge of, like, the circle that had formed around him, and I was close to where the seating was, and he went to go set his sweatshirt down, so I was sort of, like, right over there where he was heading, and he went to put it down, and he's like, hey, can you, you know, keep an eye on this for me or whatever. So I just kind of teased him. I'm like, you know, I can, but there's a fee, and I can't guarantee you that, you know, nothing's gonna happen to it. You know,
so had you just been like, yeah, like, then he just would have been like, okay, that's like a nobody or whatever, like.
Well, I mean, it's, you know, like, you essentially want to jolt him out of whatever it is that he's doing, you know, because that's what's, you know, that's what gets your attention.
Because I could see how he's registering the fact that he's getting some attention because he's a good dancer, and so had you just been like, yeah, sure, I can watch it, then you would have been the watch the shirt girl for the rest of the night. Something
like that. Yeah.
But you gave him shit back.
Yeah.
Right.
Same thing
so
as
now
I did with you
caused him to think. Yes, you did. You did.
It works. be a sly little smartass. It works.
So it took a little bit of attitude, but like, it's not like the guy's impression is like, oh, this chick has attitude. It's like you
playful.
It's playful, yeah, which is cool. But I think what happens in real time is like, you're jolting us out of whatever our thought pattern was, and you're forcing us to like stop and recognize you for a minute. So if you give a shit back, it's like, oh, we have to use our brain now and be like, oh, like, what the fuck, and say something witty right then and there, right? So that's pretty cool. So which takes guts, right? So if he's the man of the club, you know what I mean? Like, a wallflower isn't gonna, you know, like, chirp back at him or whatever, you know. So I don't know. So okay, so what would you boil that down to? Just being playful? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's a level of confidence involved with that. Like, I mean, you know, for that example, I actually had the opportunity to, like, talk to him, but sometimes it's just a matter of, you know, like, making direct eye contact and holding it for a second and smiling, you know, just doing something just make yourself easy to approach, for one, if you want them to approach you.
So like one element of that, which what you said, you were talking about, like, staying on the outskirts of the circle. So I know, like, a lot of times when a concert or, you know, in like a club environment, you have like the densely packed crowd in the middle, and then all along the walls, or like there's like a trail to like the bar or a trail to the bathroom, like you can kind of navigate. And I remember, like, you know, at times when I would go and do that, like, I would stay in those areas too, because that's where you could, you know, meet people. That's where you could, you know, and so I think what that kind of boils down to is just being accessible, right? Like, yeah. And it's you could take that a number of ways, because, like, if you go to, say you go to the club with, you know, 5 or 6 of your girlfriends, like a guy is going to be more intimidated by that than if you just go with your one friend, maybe, right?
You tell me.
I would think so. I would think so. So like in the pickup artist community, what they would say is like, just ignore, like the dynamics of the group, right? So they would say, okay, so if a girl's there with a guy, even if they're by themselves, don't think, oh, it's the boyfriend or whatever. Like go investigate. So it could be the brother, it could be anybody. If it's like a group full of guys and one girl, it's like just going anyway, you know. But that's for a guy that is actively like going out a lot, trying to force himself in uncomfortable positions, you know, trying to develop that skill set.
Yeah, but I mean,
but the average guy's going to be intimidated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, intimidated or not, like some of them, I mean, maybe it's a matter of, hey, you know, you look like you were having a good time. I didn't necessarily want to interrupt you. You know, like not every guy is going to have that mentality where, you know, they're like, oh, you know, I'm, you know, going to like make her day better or whatever, you know, type of thing. Because I feel like the way that you've always approached things, and this is what I've really liked, is that your mentality has always been about the experience that you're giving the other person, you know. And I think a lot of people don't come from that angle, and maybe they see themselves like they're more worried about what, you know, what they're gonna get out of it, and like, or, you know, am I gonna like interrupt whatever's going on or whatever else. I don't know.
But it's easy to get hypnotized by the environment and shift from this perspective of the other person's experience to worrying about yourself. You know?
Yeah.
It's easy because especially when you're intimidated, which in that environment would be much more intimidating than like a date setting, right? So once this when you're feeling the pressure, like you're going to be less charitable, and now you're going to be like worried about yourself.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
Even if you strive for it, it's like now all of a sudden, you know what I mean? Like, which sucks, right? Because so pickup artists talk about this too. They talk about like priming yourself before you got to the club. So like something you would do is like, okay, if you know you're going out on the weekend, like that day you go to the grocery store, like you're purposefully like chatting up the cashier. You're like everybody like you're the fucking man that day from the second you hop out of your bed. Everybody you come across, which really this is just life advice, right?
Yeah. I think that's true for women too.
Yeah.
I think there is a way that you carry yourself, you know, that sort of draws the attention. You know, like I've told you, some of the women, like some of the girls in my life, some of the women in my life that I admire, like my friend Denise, you know, I've told you, like she walks into a room and you fucking stop and look, like, you know, and I mean, part of it for her is just because, like, she's tall, but she's not afraid to like take up the space with it too, you know. She's like this tall, beautiful Amazon woman, and like you can't help but look when she walks in the room.
I mean, is Sabrina in the room too?
But I feel like a big part of that is just in, you know, the
like
way
the energy and the posture.
The way you carry yourself. And I mean, a big part of that is, you know, don't go out to the store in fucking ratty clothes and you know, whatever else. Like, you know, take some damn pride in yourself. Yeah. You know.
So some of this stuff is common sense stuff that's probably like intuitive to women in general.
You would think. I have seen where it's not. And I think there's a part of us that's sort of resistant. Like most women, I think, are kind of resistant to the idea that they can quote unquote like use their looks to get a guy. You know, because we don't want to be wanted just for sex. We don't want to be chased after just for our looks or whatever else. But at the same time, like, guys are visual creatures. Yeah. You know, like that's going to be the best fastest
man that you
way.
Can have, right?
Yeah.
So you have to play ball a little bit.
And I think a lot of women are resistant as fuck to that. And I mean, I can get it because there's an ego thing with that, you know, because obviously not all of us are like, always going to be the prettiest girl in the room to every guy or whatever else, but there are things that you can do that just sort of show like
booty shorts.
Self-respect, confidence, like, in that you're at, just not, don't look homeless,
Okay. So, I got 2 questions on that. Okay, so a lot of this would be common sense, ideally.
Ideally.
What would you say is something that's less intuitive that you've learned from listening to the different coaches over the years, or at least something for you that didn't click right away? It's like, where it's like, oh, you listen to it, then it clicked into place. Like, oh, okay. It's an on the spot question.
All of this is on the spot,
it is,
pretty much.
It is. That's how we roll.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of like the thing that is least.
And you can put that in your back pocket if you want. I'm going to know.
Well, I was gonna say. I think overall, really, it would be really ensuring that you have sort of like this moderate level, like if you are the loudest one in the center of the room and whatever else, then you're going to seem unaccessible. And if you are the, super, super quiet wallflower that's not talking to anybody and like can't hold eye contact and whatever else, like
you might get the attention of the controlling, manipulative. I want the weak one.
And it's like, like my personality has always been pretty, straightforward with a lot of things. So essentially just sort of learning how to play coy, drag things out, be, like let the guy chase you, but at the same time, like it's all a fucking balancing act is what it kind of comes down to. And you have to sort of tune into, what's going on. Is he trying harder? Is he pulling back?
Be aware, right?
Yeah.
Because that's always what it is, like, so this is what interests me, like, what are the universal truths of interaction, human interaction as you apply it to the dating world. For men, this is definitely true. It's like you go out, and you're just fucking there. Like you're listening, you're interacting, you're using expression, you're feeling what's being said, you're shooting back some comedy or whatever, and just having a good time. Like you're making the most of it,
Yeah, and I think for women, like a lot of it is just like don't try too hard, be reactive to like letting a guy lead the environment, lead the tone, like lead
that's a good one.
All of that.
Okay, so that's really hard for some girls. Like certain friends, I think would be hard for, especially. You're really good at that. So that's one way, when I think back to other girls that I've interacted with, that
interactive with, I like that.
Or even just dates though, right? So when I think back to other girls, like you have been notably, like I don't want to use submissive in like
that is what it is
in a negative connotation, like cause some people would like
it's not. If you have a negative connotation of it, then I know there's nothing negative about it.
And it's say that with like the asterisk that like, okay, this is a person that runs her own business, that trains like a hard martial art, that coaches CrossFit, that is like out there leading in society, etc. But when it comes to like the male-female interaction, like you play a role and I play a role, and it's sexy, like it works, like there's chemistry there, and it's notably different between, say, other girls, because it creates that masculine, feminine like polarity, I feel like, and I feel like giving into that is something that some women like would have trouble with, and then it's useful to say.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta trust to some degree.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious, like, I don't know what all plays into that, that particular mindset, like when it comes to like actionable advice, like if you're out, you know, out on the town, or if you're out on a date or whatever, or even just text or phone interaction.
Yeah, I mean, it's, don't be excessively texty. Don't necessarily. There are ways to initiate a date, but I mean, a lot of it needs to be kind of like, oh, hey, like something like this might be, kind of fun. And then let him be like, well, let me take you to, do that at XYZ time or whatever.
Pausing and letting him set the plans, etc. Because
Yes.
what happens if you don't, then potentially you can end up with this guy that never fucking plans anything, right? Right? Which we're
yes.
notorious for, right? This is something that we have to learn. And it's funny, like, because I've been that guy that's like, that just lets the girl make the plans, like in the past. Like
No,
I
make the
didn't
guy work for it.
Yeah. And so, and that's like something we learn, like in our hemisphere of dating advice. It's like, yeah, like set definite plans, like, So, okay, so.
And on that note, don't be the fucking last second phone call Tuesday rotation chick. Don't be the girl that the guy texts and is like, hey, are you free tonight? I've got XYZ time. Like, no, I'm not free.
Yeah, like
I have
day
a
of,
fucking
like
life.
calls you Tuesday or something,
Yeah,
and like figuring you out.
yeah, respect. Yeah, like a little fucking respect. Or if you've been seeing a guy for a couple months and you never spend and I mean, obviously there's caveats to that, like if he works weekends or whatever else,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, assuming he's like you, 9 to 5, whatever else,
Mm-hmm.
and you only see this guy on like fucking Tuesday or Thursday,
Mm-hmm.
Don't know what he's up to weekends or whatever else type of thing, just, hey, I'm not free till Saturday, like,
Mm-hmm.
set some fucking boundaries. Or, one of the exact examples that one of the dating coaches I follow, he had a girl that he texted and he's like, hey, I'm going to be in town. I've got like 20 minutes here. Do you want to like, meet for coffee and kind of like hook up type of thing, whatever. And like her response back was, well, I'm not a last minute window, like 20-minute girl.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to take me out to dinner tonight and spend some time, that would be nice. So
Mm-hmm.
don't be a bitch about it. Don't be, well, I don't do this. Like, don't be a fucking snoot.
Yeah.
Like, guys are gonna test boundaries a lot.
Yep. Yep. And I'm thinking back to a specific instance with this one girl that I tried to get her to go out during the week, and she wouldn't. But there's no caveat like, hey, why don't you take me out, whenever instead. Like, I had to keep pursuing to like finally set up the date that happened on the weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I mean, depending on the guy's interest level and like whatever else, he may or may not do that. But if you want to, keep things more accessible, which is better, like earlier on, because guys aren't, if it's going to take him 3 weeks to set up a first date with you, then chances are you're going to struggle with that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean,
buddy's own.
yeah, because I mean, you have to have a certain level of availability to be in a relationship. So a guy who's pursuing a relationship isn't going to want to be with somebody that he can only see, once a fucking month.
Right.
Like,
right.
And then you're demonstrating that you don't have, that you don't want to make the time for him. So there's a level of respect to be shown. I mean, like, even the first time that we went out, like, we got together late because I had like, I had an event at a friend's house that I had to attend, and I wasn't going to skip on that.
Mm-hmm.
But we found a nice little middle of the road compromise.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep. Okay, so one more question. Okay, so I don't know if this is going to end up being the same scenario that we just talked about, but can you tell a story about a time where you manipulated the situation to get a result that you wanted with a guy.
Yep.
Awesome.
Because my favorite one is with you.
Oh, really? Oh, shit. Have I even heard this story yet?
Probably. Because I give you shit about it all the time, which was getting you to call me.
Okay.
Getting you to call me sooner. Yeah.
Okay. I definitely know this story.
Because I knew I was going to be like kids and like busy out of town the next weekend. Like I knew shit was about to get crazy. But I did want to go out with you. So figure the easiest way to kind of speed the process up. And this helps if you know their game plan. so I took advantage of the fact that you put all the videos out and are like, oh yeah, like text her and then call her 2 to 3 days later or whatever else. Mm-hmm. And so, I kind of had to give you a little shit and just be like, hey, so I guess you're going to, text me over the next 2 or 3 days and then you'll give me a phone call after that.
And I loved it because it gave me permission to break the script. Like, literally, to me, that was like, okay, well.
If you didn't break the script, then you were the boring guy.
Yeah, right? Because then you just fucking predicted, like, what, you know what I mean? So you can't be predictable, like, right out of the gate, So backstory on this is like, so I've put out other videos about this, but like my favorite method of meeting girls is to like send out like a short video clip over Facebook. And so I sent one to Sabrina, and she just kind of like, almost like sort of halfway blew it off, like over text, like, like a cursory response, like, okay, whatever, and so it didn't go anywhere. So then but I noticed that she did respond to me. So I'm like, okay, this one is fucking cute. I'm gonna hit her back. And so I hit her back the next day. And at that point, when I hit you back, then you went back to my profile to check out my videos and stuff like that.
You had sort of like dragged the text conversation a little bit the first day. You were kind of like trying to get it to go somewhere.
Right, but not exacerbating it to the point where it's like, okay, this is a definite no. It was like I left some leeway in there. But my point is, so day 2 comes, you check out my profile, now you know that I'm a dating or at least you've watched some videos, you get a sense of like
who you are. I see, somebody who's interested in running their own business, isn't afraid to put themselves out there. I love the fact that you train BJJ. Stuff like that. So you seemed like an interesting person.
So at the point that I'm registering with you mentally, you get that, the conventional advice is like call 2 or 3 days after you get the phone number. So she gives me shit, and it's like at that point it's like a fucking green light, like, so I called you.
You called me the same day. You called me that night.
Yeah.
You called me that night, and that was on a Tuesday because that was on a Wednesday because it was the day after my birthday. My birthday was on a Tuesday, so that was a Wednesday, and then we went out Friday night. Yeah.
And keep in mind, like, I've gotten girls' numbers before. Well, obviously not calling at all sometimes, but like I've waited as long as like 5 days to call. So that was definitely, especially because you were the last, like obviously the last interest like that I had. You know what I mean? So during all that time, for me to call same day, like a year and a half into going out a lot, is an irregularity, like by a long shot. And so it's cool. So you kind of, so you knew what the conventional advice was on this end, and you set it up to where, was that what you were thinking when you said that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
So you have to wait the 3 days.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember if it was our first date or our second date that I was teasing you, telling you I was at a point where I was just sort of like tallying how many of your rules I could get you to break. I think we got up to 6 or 7.
I did break a lot. Yeah.
So,
you know what the cool thing about all this is that, like, when you learn what to do, I mean, it's not like you can just break everything when you know what to do, because there is still a level of like physics to all this shit. There's like certain, like the way shit works. There's mechanics to relationships and attraction, all this stuff. But what's really cool is like when you meet somebody that has a high level of interest in you, the less that you need to sort of like manipulate the attraction levels, right? Because it's just there.
Yeah.
So, I think that
Nonetheless, it was fun for me.
So you got
Still
a taste
is.
of who I was a little bit because of my videos. And I had like little 5-second clips of you, like 2 or 3, so I didn't really know a lot until we got on the phone.
Yeah.
And so we talked on the phone for like 45 minutes, then I knew that you were going to be like a great date. But
Even though you did have 2 dates that day.
yeah. Okay, that's for another video. So,
Oh, you know that and the other one that I'm not going to put on video that I'm going to perpetually give you shit about.
other video. So,
I don't know if that one's ever going to go on video. I think there are some people who might be hyper-reacting.
okay, that one's not going on video. So, but long story short, is like, yeah. So you basically use like, well, knowing what the advice is, and then basically just fucking around, just joking around, is like a way to get what you wanted, which is don't wait the 3 days at that point. You know?
Yeah.
Cool. I like it. It worked out. So okay, so just recapping shit, right? So because like this is even for me, because I've got friends that half the time I don't even know like what to say, because like what I want to say is what I would say to a guy. I'd say, okay, get over yourself, go out there, go like approach a lot, and then ultimately go out on dates with a shit ton of people and
Yeah, well,
don't
and I
care
mean,
what happens to
you
you,
know,
get the right
we
person.
are
It's
like,
different.
girls are supposed to date like not exclusively. You know, I mean, we're told, like, yeah, talk to a couple of guys, don't talk to a fuck ton, and definitely don't sleep with all of them.
Do it.
Standard advice is, wait a few days before you sleep with a guy, just because you want to have that little carrot on a string,
Yeah.
But yeah, just essentially.
And on that, I don't want to go off on too many tangents, but you know what, like, part of that, like, seems like good. Okay, so here's the thing. So, male dating coaches to men will say, don't go out with a girl that, like, has the rules about when she sleeps with a guy, because the one that is going to follow her emotions is going to be the kind of woman that you want to be around, like the fun, like feminine, like emotional girl. But at the same time, enough women have been fucked over by guys, like sleep with them early enough, and then it's like they're fucking gone.
Yeah, well, and the other thing too is it's going to depend on, the guy, because most women, want to feel, so same dating coach, I liked the caveat he gave, which said on average 4 to 5 dates, because you want, give or take, about 10 hours. So, like our first date, I mean, shit, we were out until 3 in the morning? About?
Met up at 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you take something like that into context.
This is me. So, I mean, I don't need 10 hours, I just need 5.
It's more than 5. Thank you. Just putting that out there. Like that, like the emotion takes time to build, So yeah, you want to take a little bit of time to, to sort of develop that. Because I think a lot of women who
because we can have sex without any emotional attachment or attraction whatsoever, right? So then if we get in and we do that first, and then that attachment isn't there, then off to the next. For some guys, this is an ego thing. Like we like have our count, right? And that's that's our little ego story in our head about what kind of man we are. It's funny because like there's this pickup artist guy that I follow, Owen Cook, has this saying that like every guy thinks that he can fight, and every guy thinks he's good with women. Those are our ego like metrics. So every guy is like always trying to like up his count, so that way he can give himself his little ego story. Even if he's only been with 2 or 3 women, he might say to himself, well, like I fucked the shit out of those 2 or 3 women, like I was, like whatever, like that's gonna be, you know what I mean? And so if a guy isn't emotionally hooked on you and then he can't have sex early, then he can go off to the next thing to try to just play out his little ego story, if that's the mode he's in. Which most people that are coping and suffering in life, they're trying, you know what I mean? They're going that ego route instead of the present.
Yeah, and it's like with with women, we want to be submissive, but that doesn't necessarily mean just giving you what you want. Like it's,
you can't be.
Yeah, there's the like respectful sort of like I'll follow you type of thing, like I'll follow you, I'll listen to you, but that needs to be given with caution as a as something special. Not something you necessarily want to give to everybody, because guys want to fucking feel special. I mean, it's the same reason as like guys, most of them don't, most competent guys don't give a shit and maybe even like to see other guys checking their girl out or trying to like make a pass at her, whatever. Like most of them don't really give that much of a shit, because they like they're like, hey, yeah, she's fucking hot, but she's mine. So I mean, just a general rule of thumb: stroke the guy's ego. So if you show that you have the capacity to set boundaries to some level, lead to some level, and you choose to be that way with a guy, it's different. And I think it's that way with, with a lot of dynamics is, you need to be able to show that you can play whatever role you need to play, and then, sort of make it like a gift type of thing, if that makes sense.
A gift type of thing. So, like you're
like a trust. Yeah, okay. It's showing trust.
Because from a man's perspective, there's a giving definitely on the date. It's the listening. It's the offering, like humor for their experience. It's like everything we're doing is sort of for the other person's experience, and ultimately for ours too, right? Because have a good experience at the end of the night might be a good experience for everybody. But you don't get there if all you're thinking about is the result that you want. So I that's how I'm interpreting what you're saying is like a gift.
Yeah. I mean, sort of. Just make it obvious you wouldn't do that for just anybody either.
Okay, gotcha.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a recap, just to plug this in here and then put it out there. Advice for women is like, so you have to have the boundaries. You have to just like put yourself in the guy's orbit in certain situations without having some direct approach or seeming needy or whatever.
Make him step out to you.
Okay. Through eye contact.
Through eye contact, if you have to sort of like sideswipe, initiate a conversation, hey, can I borrow the salt shaker off your table? Whatever it is.
Okay.
Something to jolt his attention, and then step back and say, well, are you going to come get me?
I like that. That's really fucking cool. That's really fucking cool. Yeah. Obviously the physical appearance stuff, like that's no brainer. Like everybody knows that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, some people don't want to accept it, but yeah, I mean, like it or not, it's just, it is what it is.
Yeah. What else did we say? We had such an amazing conversation like in the car like a week ago, and there was things I was like, oh, this is like tactical and interesting, like and then we talked about the situation of like who's gonna come to the other one. Like we did get into that because you were talking about your guy Corey Wayne saying you make the girl come to you,
And that was one of those things where it can really go one way or the other, but like it's sort of that's a power dynamic thing, and that's where sort of the general mentality of the female submissiveness comes in, and that is your green light as a girl to sort of break it when it's been like pretty well established. Maybe it'll just be like, like sitting here, if we're at a restaurant, at a bar, whatever, kind of making eye contact a couple times, smiling, holding it for a little while, whatever else. And I've definitely been in those shoes too, where it's pretty well established. And honestly, at that point, most of the time, like, as a girl, like, you still kind of want to try to, like, wave him over a little bit.
Okay.
And, like, if it's obvious he's being stubborn as fuck and wants you to go over there, then yes, that's your go. That's, where you sort of, oh, okay, I'll let you lead, But yeah.
We just got distracted by the downstairs roommates' YouTube stuff.
Pretty sure that's League of Legends.
Oh, okay. So I think that's good. It's interesting for me. It's like an ongoing interest because, there's so much of human interaction that is universal in terms of like the way things work and stuff like that. But there's cultural differences. There's hormonal there is differences between the sexes, and I think this is an ongoing subject for me, and I want to put out more videos on this because the advice is different. Like, there's some shit that's the same. There's definitely stuff that's different. Like you guys have an indirect attraction mechanism where it's like you said, you sideswipe the conversation, etc.
Yeah.
And for us, it's like go direct, go.
Yeah. Stay just on the edge, be accessible, but make them fucking work for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
so
and it's that way through the whole thing, like don't text him first thing every morning or whatever else. I mean, you had to text me first the first couple of days.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There was no fucking way I was texting you.
Got him. Cool.
But yeah, no, I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to is make him work for it, stroke his ego when he does.
Cool. Well, this is awesome, and we'll have to. It would be interesting to get like a dating coach for women on the line one of these days, and kind of pick their brain too. Maybe like do a 3-way conversation or something. I don't know. It'd be fun. Cool. Awesome. Thanks for doing this with me.
Always.
Bye.